What does it mean to worship God? We find a lot of ways to expand on what it means to be people of faith. But what if we take a moment to reverse that tendency and instead try to sharpen our focus on what is at the heart of faith? What's the bottom line? I think that the same question was on the lips of the prophet Micah when he asked the question that begins our scripture lessons today. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow before God on high? Micah goes on to ask if God would be pleased with extravagant offerings in exchange for love and forgiveness. And then, in the role of prophet to God's people, Micah responds, "He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God?" The prophets remind us that the bottom line of faith, the reason we exist as a church, is to love and serve others and to work for justice. To work for fairness toward all people. Jesus takes this notion even further. Jesus teaches that our relationship to God is not only reflected in how we treat others, but is also shaped by how we treat others. Those that Jesus calls righteous hear the words, "I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." The righteous respond by saying, "When, Lord? When did we do these things?" And Jesus replies, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these of my family, who are members of my family, you did it to me. I was sick, and you took care of me." Today is World Malaria Day. For millions of people, a simple mosquito bite can be a death sentence. Bed nets to protect against malaria cost only $10. Treatment to cure malaria costs only $2. We have the ability to end malaria in Africa, just as in the United States. In Rwanda and Ethiopia, malaria has been cut in half within 2 years. We have the way to do it, as long as we don't lose the will to make it happen. The love that Jesus calls us to is an act of love. It's a love that must be lived out every day. It's the love that Micah and Isaiah call us into when they use the word justice. That's an important word to keep at the center of our faith. Justice. The justice that Scripture calls us into is a justice rooted in relationship. It means working together. It also means being in a relationship with our poorest neighbors. It can be easy to look at the problem of poverty in the world and keep it at a distance. to not enter into a relationship. And even when we refuse to ignore the problem, it can be easy to look at the problem of poverty in the world as a matter of charity to needy strangers. It's easy to think the only solution is to write another check. But over and over again, Scripture makes it clear that God views the world's poor as much more than a bunch of charity cases. And to those of us with more, God views us as much more than a bunch of bank accounts. God created us to be in relationship with each other, to pay attention to the lives of others, and realize that our lives are connected. God created us to realize that in many ways we are one. 10 years ago, at the dawn of a new millennium, 189 nations from around the world, including the United States, agreed to a plan to end extreme poverty. That plan includes 8 goals called Millennium Development Goals. Those 8 goals quickly are to end the most extreme forms of poverty and hunger, universal primary education, promote gender equality, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat preventable diseases such as AIDS and malaria, environmental sustainability, which includes clean water, and a global partnership for development. People from every walk of life have come together to support these goals. The leaders of the world, the leaders of the United States, have affirmed these goals. What we need to do now, however, the way that we need to just not go to church, but be the church, is to remind our leaders of these promises made to the poor, and to keep these promises from being forgotten or lost. This stuff is working, my friends. We are seeing amazing changes already. Our generation can be the generation that will be remembered as the generation that changed the world by ending extreme poverty. We can be a church that changed the world if we stand together as one.